Welcome to Read the Book First. This week, we are going to be talking about the 2016 movie adaptation, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And to help me discuss this interesting movie is Delaney.
Thanks for having me back.
Of course. But before we get too into the episode, by the time this episode's out, I've announced it. We have started our own Patreon. So if you like our show and you want more content around books and movies and other just fun stuff, check out the Patreon down below. There's a couple tiers, but specifically Delaney and I, we just had a little conversation, a game show where I made Delaney decide if certain birds were peculiar or not. So if you like birds or if you just want to look at weird creatures that exist in our real world, go check out the Patreon and that video. This adaptation is directed by Tim Burton. I was very intrigued when I realized this was directed by Tim Burton because Tim Burton movies have an aesthetic, right? I don't think it's a bad aesthetic, of course. Like I like a good handful of his movies. There's a good handful of the movies I don't like for various reasons. And I guess the book's vibes do give Tim Burton-esque.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was appropriate in some
Hmm.
ways, like the storyline. I do think it's obviously going to dictate how the movie looks and maybe the things that are focused on.
Hmm. The movie begins with like old photos and documents, which I thought was a really smart way to set like the idea of this book because like we talked about in our episode last week, turning this book into a movie, a book that has so many visual aspects into a movie that is essentially all visual of a medium is going to be weird how they do that. And I think this was a good choice to it because it has, Easter eggs for the book fans while also just telling the audience, hey, we're talking about old black and white photos a lot in this movie.
Yeah, it was. I actually really liked that part. I liked they kept the font. I mean, they opened kind of
Yes.
with that, and then they had yeah, the photos from the book. They had creepy Santa in there.
Hmm.
They had some things or elements from the book that I think you would lose because I mean they're not going to just sit there and show all of the photo
Yeah.
in the movie. So I think it was a cool way to open. Obviously, if you never read the book before, you don't really know what's going on. But
Hmm.
I always appreciate when there's adaptations and they give the book readers something.
Yeah. And I also am a sucker for a title sequence. Like I love not necessarily like I mean I do love like the 50s title sequence where they're like what if we talk about how every single person ever touched this movie in the beginning, and I like those because it's just a fun extra way where the directors could be like a little extra creative in modern movies especially of like themes or inside jokes or just some extra insight. So I thought it was a good start, especially since then the opening scene after that is Florida and it's so bright.
Yes.
It was
Just
like,
cut to Florida.
yeah, it's so bright and fluorescent
Fluorescent.
and just saturated, which I also thought was fun because when you think of Tim Burton movies, you think of black and white, gray, moody, right? You don't think of bright Florida.
Alice in Wonderland is kind of
Hmm.
muted colors and and that's a relatively bright one for Tim Burton.
For for Tim Burton,
Right.
yeah. Um, then we get introduced to Jacob, who was referred to as Jake throughout the movie, which I think is an interesting change. Like it's not a huge change, but it kind of adds to some other changes they make um later on.
Well, we don't even know his name for a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, because I think pretty early on in the book, we're hearing from the grandfather
Hmm.
talking, but yeah, we don't even know the kid's name. And yeah, he goes by Jake.
Yeah.
Is that? Oh, yeah.
And we have his voiceover, which I think is a smart way to introduce him. Voiceovers are so tricky to do in movies because they get so overdone. And I think the voiceover is only here at the beginning, which the book is written from his perspective. Um, so, but also just to like get into the mindset of Jake at this moment, I think it was a decent choice to do voiceover here. and he's working at the Rite Aid, but instead of being like, I hate my family, like legacy issues, he's just an angsty teen and more of like an outsider.
Like he has the diaper stack still, but I
Hmm.
believe in the book he knocks it over because he's being a brat, and in this one the like cool kids knock it over and make fun of him for working at the Rite Aid. And I also don't know if we ever actually even get the information that it's a family, that he's a Rite Aid nepo baby. I
I
don't.
think it's not like super clear, but like later where we see his uncle and aunt, I think they
Right.
might mention it, but it's like not a big deal.
It's not really a plot point. Whereas in the book, he's talking about this like, oh, this is my future and how ordinary
Hmm.
and boring. So that was interesting. Um, and then of course we don't have his friend character that meant nothing in the book.
The friend character who we did not enjoy reading about in the book,
Yeah,
they fixed it and they're like, yeah, what if his like manager just drove him instead? I was like, yeah, that makes more sense.
fine with that. I wasn't really sure who she was at first, and then I kind of figured, oh, it's a coworker or manager, yeah, driving, and and honestly, I was fine with that because I didn't think the friend character added anything to the book.
Yeah. It just needs to be someone else who was at the scene later on that could tell the cops I saw nothing just to make, just for juxtaposition purposes. Jake's on the phone with his grandpa who he mentions having dementia and how, and so it just sounds like your, I guess, average grandparent having a dementia freak out of some sort. As they drive up to his grandpa's house, it's suddenly like super foggy. And this is where in my head I was like, okay, now we're entering a Tim Burton movie. Now it's foggy and gray. And then suddenly there's Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, and well, that whole thing I felt like we just really jumped into.
Hmm.
First, I would like to make a note. What is the grandfather's accent?
Vaguely Eastern European.
It's not even though. I like he was supposed to be Polish. I'm
Hmm.
expecting a strong accent.
Hmm.
And it was almost like it was kind of Eastern European, but it felt like British. I,
Yeah, yeah, it's the classic accent they throw at Americans being like, this is European.
European accent, you don't know where.
Hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, sorry. And so going back to that, like we're like, all right, we're gonna go check on grandpa, and then it wasn't subtle.
Mm-mm.
They're just right there. Okay, in the middle of the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah. In the middle of the road, it's foggy, and suddenly Samuel L. Jackson is there and he's creepy looking. Does he have like the white eyes at this point?
He had wide eyes. Right. So in the book, he just sees the neighbor in passing with
Hmm.
wide eyes and is like,
Hmm.
oh, he must be blind.
Yeah.
Interesting. Or grandpa never mentioned this neighbor.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, the movie, they really don't want you to miss that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and he gets to the house, he goes through, his manager's like, call if you need anything. And I feel like as an adult, if my teenage employee had a grandpa who's freaking out, um, I maybe wouldn't hang out in the car. I would probably like at least hang out in the doorway to make sure everything's okay, you know? But they don't, which is like I understand for the plot of, makes sense, but in my head, as an adult, I'm like, at least like watch.
We have to get them separated so that he can see what he needs to see without her being there. Not that
Yeah.
she see it. I did like she was like, I have a 38.
Yeah.
Like, no worries. I'm good, I'm here. Like, all right,
Very
Shelly.
Florida, how she's like, yeah, I have a gun in my car in the back. Let me know if you need it.
Like, all right, I got you taken care of.
Hmm.
Sure.
Uh, the house is ransacked. I did like that the touch of the screen door specifically being torn up like it is in the book and how mentioned that is. Um, and Jake immediately calls for Shelly. That's her name, the manager lady. And then he finds his grandpa on the ground, face down, like he does in the book. This is pretty like accurate at this point. And then rolls him over, and his grandpa has no eyes, and that freaked me out.
I was sat there the whole time thinking, like, I don't remember this detail from the book because I don't think it was in the book.
Hmm.
And so yeah, that one, but also his like, when he starts talking to him, he that doesn't sound like someone that's dying. I don't know. Like he
Yeah.
has a pretty clear speech, and I in the book at least, like he's like torn up.
Hmm.
I think that's how he dies, is that he gets a slash across his chest or something. He's bleeding out. I don't know. That was
Yeah.
the death was, I don't know if it was believable.
Okay.
um, from this very real creature. I don't know if that's
Uh-huh.
how that death would go.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, it is. I mean, it's obvious. Like they had to make sure Abe is able to give him the long directions of go to the island, see the bird, find the old man, like all the stuff from the book. And so, like, if you were, seconds away from dying, you probably wouldn't be that coherent after being slashed by a monster. Um, but like, like earlier, like they need this for the plot, you know?
They really want to make sure they're getting these details. They don't want
Hmm.
them just like whispered where you could miss it.
Exactly, yeah.
Sure.
And then Jake looks up and he sees the monster in the woods there. It's huge.
Yeah, that was also not what I was expecting and not what I visualized.
Yeah. He has
No.
like these long, like dragging arms, like super skinny, like very like Slenderman-esque.
But I wrote that as a note. I said, "Why is this Slender Man?" Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I liked how big the monster was. I thought that was cool. I liked that like it obviously is human shaped and that it's pedal, but like it doesn't like it's not a person, you know what I mean? I liked that.
It's like more dramatic. It is more, it probably fits more Tim Burton aesthetic as this kind of, exaggerated, wild creature. Whereas I think in my mind, it was just like something human, but not like
Hmm.
human form, but very inhuman. I
Hmm.
don't know. I don't know what I
Yeah.
pictured, but it wasn't that.
Yeah. And like we don't really see the tentacles that are mentioned in the book, at least at this point, which I was okay with. Like I'm okay with not knowing what the monster looks like, truly. Like less of the monster is best as far as like adding suspense, right? Um, and then it cuts to him in therapy and it's Alice and Janie.
I know. I screamed when I saw that, and I was like, "What? Like it's Allison Janney. She's the therapist. This is not who I was expecting."
Yeah. So like, I thought great. We love Alice and Janie. But I do like how they do all of the exposition setup here is like we see like we're immediately meeting Jake, see the whole scene of him and his grandpa dying, and then we go back in time and we fill in the gaps. And I thought that was a smarter way of at least doing that. It was a little less boring way of doing that versus the book, which we both thought the beginning was boring.
It was slow. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we get flashbacks of Abe showing his pictures to little tiny Jake and telling his stories. They mention that Emma, the character, floats in here. And so we don't really, and we can talk about that once we like actually meet Emma. But like immediately when Jake says something like, "Yeah, doesn't Emma like float away?" And Abe's like, "Not with the special shoes or whatever." Like they set that up,
Olive?
right?
That's not,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, no, that's not right.
Yeah, yeah. So
uh,
well,
uh,
we could talk about that when we get to
yeah.
the
Also,
children.
another thing is Grandpa calls him Little Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
I
In
think is what
Polish?
translate. That was not in the, no.
No. And
Okay.
like they really do try to like be like his grandpa was Polish, his grandpa was Polish. And this is like a thing I've seen online and I kind of agree to a point that I feel like they've kind of made Jake and his grandpa and his family less Jewish. Like I mean, like obviously folks who live in Poland who were not Jewish were also put in the like in concentration camps and kicked out and all that awful horrendous stuff, of course. But it's like a significant part of Jacob and his grandpa's relationship in the book.
I thought I thought it was a little odd. I mean, like I mentioned, the accent.
Hmm.
Immediately, I'm thinking, okay, if this person grew up, I mean, accents change too. So if he spent enough time, and
Yeah.
whatever, maybe he loses the accent. But in my mind, reading the book, I'm like, oh, he's going to have a really strong accent.
Hmm.
That's, um, another another thing I also noticed in there too. It's not related, I guess, to this as much, but that scene where he's, the dad tells him, oh, like, you want to be an explorer, everything's already been explored, been
Hmm.
found, seen, whatever. That is in the book, I believe. But then also something I thought was funny was that the dad in the book, the birding thing is pretty important to him.
Yes.
Like that's a big part of his character. And then in the movie, he's like watching a bird documentary and stuff. And so I think, oh, okay, here's the birding stuff. And then
Hmm.
he changes it to football as
Yeah.
though as though he's not actually into birds. I'm confused.
It's like he's watching the birding documentary when he has people in the room with him, as if like this is my identity. I am someone who is into birds, and that's like my thing. And then as soon as they leave, he's like, just kidding, football. Which is like, that's fine if you like football. It's just like, don't
Weird
be ashamed of
thing.
it.
Yeah, because the whole point of him in the book was that he was passionate about this stuff, but he couldn't finish a project, and he
Yeah.
didn't have like that motivation, and a lack of confidence is a really big part.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was weird. Like why bother, like why
Yeah.
do that?
I feel like Jacob's dad in the book is like a very nuanced portrayal of depression. Whereas the dad in the movie is just like basic depressed. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, yup, everything is this monotone and I don't care because caring would take energy. Like that kind of depressed, which is like a very basic depiction of it in media, you know?
And I agree. And that's kind of, I guess I wanted to see more out of the dad character in the movie because I think he is an important character in his relationship with Jacob, whatever. And then also that tie between him and the grandfather.
Hmm.
And I guess having like depressed cargo pant dad just wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah. He wasn't the depressed cargo pant dad that we were expecting. And like, and so we get like the flashback, so we understand that of these stories and these monsters that Abe thought were real, and Jake used to believe, and then he's like bullied for believing in these mythical things, right? So we get that backstory, and I think that's all fine the way they do it, like no really big issues. And then with when we're talking about Jacob's dad, when we get the information that Jacob's dad and Abe had a really tough father-son relationship really fast. And the way the dad tells Jake is like very like matter of fact, but like it's like, yeah, he wasn't a good dad. And like we kind of thought he was cheating. He was a great grandpa. Like that's how he tells him. And then there's no like heartstrings there. Where in the book there's like heartstrings for like a little moment, you know?
I think it goes back to just not developing the dad character very much, like having him be less dimensional. And I agree. I think just the way he matter of factly is like, yep, my dad's dead. And, he was a good grandpa to you, but he sucked as a dad and it is what it is.
Hmm.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Um at the surprise party, his aunt gives him the book like she does in the book. Did you notice the decoration of Jake's room?
Yes, I did. I didn't make a note about it.
So I love looking at teenagers' rooms in movies because unless it's like a TV show with like a very like well thought out character, the rooms are always hilarious and like not what teenage rooms look like. And Jake's room, the posters, because they can't do posters of like bands or TV or movies unless they like have the copyright. And Jake's room has a ton of posters of manatees.
I was like, what was the animal? Yes, because Florida.
Because like that is like as if we growing up would have had posters of like salmon all over our walls.
Can you imagine?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and like we know this family's rich because like it's mentioned at it, and like the mom is like very like business girl, woman, like get it girl. And so they're like very affluent. And I'm like, what they should have done if I was the decorator for this, like sure it's one scene, so they didn't want to put too much money in it. But I'm like, you gotta go and get the the catalog version of a teen boy's room. That's what his room would have looked like, you know?
No, I do remember thinking, because it's such a short little flash, I do remember thinking that it's like, why is this his room? It has nothing to do with anything
Hmm.
in the plot.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, that yeah.
But in the book, his aunt gives Jake, he finds the letter from Miss Peregrine, which, like in the book, it spurs the whole idea of what if I went and found them. And of course, the therapist approved, like, it's like, yes, you guys should do this. And it is less weird in the movie than it is in the book, just because there's little there, you know?
And I don't remember how exactly it was set up in the book. I think there was more discussion about it and back and forth. And I'm pretty sure the decision happened when they're at home. But
Hmm.
I did like how they set it up. They're all in the therapist's office, having this conversation. The dad is wearing a suit top and cargo shorts. That is, come on, come on, give him more character than. Anyhow, but no, it stuck out to me. I don't know. I just was like, come on. And next to your lovely wife, and she's all dressed professionally, and you couldn't put pants on, sir. But yes, I like that part. But one gap that I'm seeing here is there is no mention of the ornithology boner.
Hmm.
That was important to us.
It was not just a throwaway line in the book that we obsessed over or anything.
No, that was relevant to the plot, I'm sure.
Yes, yes. But like Jake does, he's like, and Dad, you can go look at those birds and work on your
Yeah.
book. And so like and the dad's like, I guess I could. Huh. Yeah. Which like, okay. He's just so not active in his own, like he's not participating in his own life at all.
Completely passive and yeah. And again, I really saw the dad's character in the book. I mean, also passive, but it was more of like a confidence issue, and there was passion there.
Hmm.
Whereas this guy is just like bland.
Hmm.
And also the mom doesn't, I mean, we have no character development with the mom,
Yeah.
really. Like we
Yeah.
get very little, and so there's not much there either.
Yeah.
But
I mean, she's barely even in the book.
she's barely in the book, yeah. But we
Yeah.
get a little bit more where it's like, oh, she's the one that's the breadwinner and
Hmm.
maybe like more ambitious, and she's the businesswoman. And we get the sense that like the dad is struggling with his identity.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
But it cuts to them on the ferry going to I'm gonna say this wrong, Caorn. Caorn? Sure. The Welsh island that they're going to. And on that ferry, it was so foggy, and I was like, this is the atmosphere I wanted for this scene. You know, I love a foggy boat ride when it's not dangerous.
the aesthetic is lovely. The navigation is not so lovely.
Very true. And as they're on this ferry, the dad spots a peregrine falcon.
Yeah. I said, what? What happened to the make shearwaters?
Like, obviously, it's supposed to be for Miss Peregrine, right? So like,
It's
if
supposed
they're
to
gonna
be
shout out a
plot.
bird, they're gonna shout out that
Yes.
bird. But I paused it at the bird and I took a picture and I sent it to my bird folks, and I was like, "Is this really a peregrine falcon?" And they're like, "Probably."
Okay, that and I think that's what that is. I've seen a
Hmm.
peregrine falcon before. It There was something off and I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Um, Marissa said if it wasn't a peregrine falcon, it might be a kestrel, which is just a similar esque bird.
Yeah, I at first I thought maybe it was a kestrel, but it also didn't quite look like I don't know.
Yeah. It was a blurry
Yes,
bird.
it was a blurry, probably peregrine falcon. Part of me is okay with it because it does eliminate some extra scenes kind of shore things up, but also it felt too obvious. I don't
It's
know.
too on the nose for a movie that's called Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Like if the title was different and they just mentioned a Peregrine and later on a character's last name was Peregrine, I'd be like, okay, like still a little on the nose, but like I'm okay. But having it Peregrine in the title and this,
Points it out,
hmm
like they discuss it, which it would have been a little cooler if they just had subtly this peregrine flying over next to the ferry,
hmm
and maybe they don't. I mean, if the dad's supposed to be a birder, he would notice, but I don't know.
yeah,
I just
Jake saying like Miss Peregrine.
yeah, it's like, come on, we get
Yeah.
it. You didn't have to
hmm
do that. It's silly.
Yeah. Once they get to the little hotel pub, the priest hole, they meet Kev, who owns it, and then also we meet Uncle Augie here, which I think is a smart move to like less village characters, right? So this kind of is a combination of actual Uncle Augie in the book, as well as the guy who ran the museum.
So we don't have that character, right? No.
Yeah.
And but did you notice on the wall that they did have the bog body
Oh yes,
on
yes,
the,
yes.
like there was a picture on there, which I thought was a nice little Easter egg
Mm-hmm.
from the book.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you didn't read the book first, you wouldn't know.
I also like that Uncle Augie is wearing glasses inside, and with the whole like we know that um Abe's eyes are taken out, and so in my head I was like, is Uncle Augie like are his eyes affected at this point? We don't know. Like he's just wearing sunglasses inside, so we're just assuming like that he's like doesn't his vision doesn't work or something, you know. But in my head I was like, I wonder if they connect those dots. That could have been cool. This next part cracked me up that the five teenagers on this island hang out right outside this pub.
Yeah. And also like they get there and immediately we're jumping into it like, all right, you go birding, dad, I'm gonna go with these
Hmm
very trustworthy teenagers.
And his dad like pays them to go guide him.
But they are as cringe as they are in the book, though.
Yes. hmm Yep.
They do capture that. I just uh,
Yeah. Uh, and the cringy teens do lead Jake to the old house, but they trick him to going through the bog, and he loses a boot.
yeah, and I in some ways I like it better than the sheep
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because anyone that's been around boggy, for us muskeg,
hmm
my brother lost a boot in
Oh yeah.
muskeg once.
hmm
It's yeah, and so I did think that that was kind of I almost liked how they did that instead of having tricking him to go into the sheep shed thing.
Yeah.
It
I and it
it
skips some
worked.
steps for later, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's we don't when we also get away from those cringy teenagers ASAP.
let's be done with those characters.
Absolutely. Jake gets to the house and it's mostly destroyed, and so he goes and he goes around it for a little bit, but he's like very visibly like upset that Miss Peregrine doesn't live there currently because it's destroyed and abandoned.
It was a really short, like it didn't feel like he spent a lot of time because
Yeah.
he's at the house and then we're cutting back to the pub.
Yeah, where he's
Like
talking
he's
to Augie. He's like and he asks Augie about the bombing. Um, and he tells him about it. Um, but the next day Jake goes back to explore, right?
something with Uncle Augie. He said there were no survivors, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
movie,
I
which
think.
which in the book, Uncle Augie says, "Oh yeah, only one kid survived," and we assume that's Grandpa. So that is a difference that
hmm
it's not that important, but I did know. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no survivors?
Yeah, because I feel like in the book, the mystery leading up to Jake discovering the kids it's a better lead up, where in the movie, there's no lead up. It's like he looks at it once, oh, empty. They're trying to put so much into this movie.
True. It is. And so they're moving through a lot of stuff fast, and yet at the
Hmm.
same time, it feels still somehow very slow. Like it
Yep.
just, I don't know. And I guess the book is kind of like that, but there is a little more, there's a little more suspense, the
Yeah.
whole like finding the trunk and he has to throw it down and
Hmm.
it busts open. He has to go into the basement. And then they're looking at him through the hole in the floor. Whereas in
Yeah.
the movie, it's just, here you go. Here's the kids. There they are.
Yep.
No worries.
As he's like going through the house, they all appear, and then he tries to run away from them, which, to be fair, they are creepy looking, specifically the kids and the matching outfits, which we'll talk about a little bit, but like specifically them, like, yeah, I would also run. Yeah,
Ghost children are always the creepiest type of ghosts. So.
absolutely. He runs and then he hits his head
Right.
and
And
faints.
faints or, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he wakes up and he's being carried by the little girl, which is hilarious. Um,
I don't know what I pictured in my mind with the book, but like I wasn't expecting such a little girl,
mhm.
like
Yeah,
so frilly kind of. I was expecting, the tomboy kind of girl. I don't know.
yeah,
I actually almost like it better that she's,
yeah,
unassuming.
yeah. Um, she like throws him down, and then suddenly, like, instead of them like introducing or like explaining what's going on, Jake just knows all their names.
Like, oh, I know you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and they go through the tunnel, um, and but then Jake runs through the town instead of to the house at the tunnel. So like he goes through to time jump, spoilers, obviously spoilers in this podcast. But he goes to the 1940 timeline, and instead of going to the house with them, he runs through town to the pub.
He does do that in the
He does
book,
that in the
but later,
but
right?
later, yeah. This is just
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm just not gonna follow you. I'm gonna go back home.
Well, and I think also he just seems very chill about everything that just happened, and then
Yeah,
he takes off. Yeah,
it
that
doesn't
was
make
kind of an
sense.
odd transition.
Yeah, and then the Millard, who's the invisible kid, goes into the pub and like throws beers, and they rescue Jake, and like that's a fun scene, the way they filmed it.
And I also like that he's like, I have powers. Like, did you see what I did in there? And they were like, no,
No, that was
that
Millard.
literally wasn't you.
So they rescue him and bring him back to the house in the 1940s timeline, and we meet all of them here. So we have Millard, who's the invisible boy. We have the strong girl who had carried him earlier. Then we meet Olive, who in this version has like fire hands.
Emma's power is like yeah.
The light, but it's more like I think like heat or fire than light in this one.
And then Olive has Emma's powers. Emma has Olive's powers.
Yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, the big change is that Emma is the one that floats, but in general, she just has like the power of air is how
Is how it's
they like
described.
phrase it.
Yes.
Um, which like it comes important later for what they decide to do. But she wears like this like cute little frilly dress, like very 1940s, and then she wears like these like punk boots that are like
Steampunk kind
they're
of, yeah.
so cool. Like
Yeah.
the shoes are cool.
I like the exposition of it, the very
Hmm.
like dainty, yeah, floral, frilly kind of dress. And then,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. We have the little girl who has we don't see at this point. She just looks like a little girl, but she has a mouth on the back of her head, like in the book. We have the kid who sees the future or dreams about the future. We have the boy with the bees. Um, and then later we meet Enoch, who, like in the book, is just a creepy Frankenstein doctor-esque guy. But of course we meet Miss Peregrine herself.
I thought she would be older. I don't know. I
Yeah, yeah.
I was
I
expecting. I don't know what I was expecting for that. I was expecting more of that, the sort of I don't want to say matronly, but I don't know, more of a like the librarian kind
mm-hmm.
of archetype, not so
Yeah.
much like she just seems really young.
Hmm.
I don't know. That's in my mind. It was like all these older women are the Imbrans slash birds,
Yes.
and so that was I don't know. I don't know why I expected that, but
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that we meet her and the kids so fast. It's like boom,
yeah.
boom, 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 boom. And we also get like a huge lore dump. They're like, here's a bunch of information. And like she's giving Jake a tour of the house and the garden, and then we see the little girl pulling out this huge carrot from the garden. And I was
Fiona.
like, yeah, Fiona, yes, yes. And I love the prop of the huge carrot. I think it's hilarious. But like, why? Oh, because one of the girls can control plants.
Yeah, that's Fiona. That's
Yes, yes,
she's the
yes.
one. Yeah, so I think it's just to show her
Her power.
abilities. Is that's
Yeah,
the only reason, and that
yeah.
it's kind of it is very Tim Burton, like again the
Hmm.
kind of eccentric and exaggerated.
Yeah.
Um, no, but I agree. It did feel like we were getting a lot of stuff just dumped on us. Also, Miss Peregrine already knows about Abe.
Hmm.
Emma already knows about Abe.
Yeah.
And I guess in the book, Miss Peregrine has her suspicions. She's pretty sure that's why he's here, because
Yeah.
otherwise he would be here with him.
Hmm.
But like Emma is pretty devastated by this.
Hmm.
And so she's just very like, oh, yeah, he's dead.
Hmm. Yeah,
So I
no,
don't know. It's,
Miss Peregrine just feels like very, she feels stressed out, which I think is accurate for the situation. Anyone would be stressed out in her situation. But she seems stressed out, but also so detached from not just reality, but just like emotions.
yes. And I get the sense in the book. I mean, of course, any character in a book is going to have more complexities. Like
Hmm.
that's just how that works. But it did feel I don't want to say she was a little cold, but she's just very matter of fact about things. Like they all sort of are. I think Emma's powers are in the book that it feels like it's a little bit more emotional, like it's more tied to her emotions. She's just more emotional. She just exhibits more. And then in the movie, I don't know. I just thought it was weird. Like she didn't seem that upset by this guy that she's supposed to be super in love with.
Hmm. This part is where I was like getting to, I was like understanding why this movie was not as successful as they hoped it would be. And this is essentially like weird goth kid X-Men, though arguably X-Men is for goths. Um you know what I mean? And here's the issue. When you have what it will be a team of essentially superheroes, like they have superpowers, essentially. Like they're weird, they're peculiar, sure, but they're weird powers. When you have a team of people with these powers, you have to make sure that all the powers make sense for the world they're in, but also that they are integrated into the story so that later on when they're useful, it makes sense. Where in this movie, they put all the information of all these kids and their powers right in these like chunk of like 10 minutes. And some of them we don't see the power at all until they are needed or else everyone dies. And that is just bad writing.
It is like I don't know. It is a lot at once, and it's I guess I will say I appreciate that they kept everybody because I was
Yes.
worried that they were going to combine people's powers and have fewer characters. So I do appreciate that everyone's represented. I thought Enoch would be I don't know what I was expecting from him. Like he's more just like an angry teenage boy. He
Hmm.
wasn't as creepy as I thought. The weird mutant babies was very Tim Burton.
The twins and they're in the costumes and we don't know why until later when it's useful again. Like,
Yeah, and again, and in the book, the twins are just mentioned, and they have
hmm
no plot for the rest of the book.
hmm
Like we know that they're there, but yeah, I don't know. That one, I think they were just using them to add to the aesthetic. That's all.
Yeah.
I feel like the twins were just aesthetic.
Hmm.
Um. Oh, I know the other one. So no, Horace.
Hmm.
Yeah, Horace. So the projection of his dreams, so that was different.
Hmm.
And that was, and it was cool. I mean, in some ways, it was a
Yeah.
cool power.
It's
Um,
it's cool that he could not just, you know, tell the future, but also project it and share it. I think that's a unique version of this kind of power.
Also a little like the Black Mirrors episode, and what a horrible, like, I don't want to see my dreams projected. You know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I
Um, Also in the movie version, Miss Peregrine is way more um
involved.
just involved, but also like strict. Like everyone has a daily chore that they do every day the same day. So like part of the issues of the book is that the time travel aspect does not make sense, right? We talked about that on last week's episode. If you didn't listen to it, go listen to it. But in the movie version, they try to make it make more sense to make sure the kids are in the certain spots at certain times, um, for, you know, so that they don't like butterfly affect things, I think. But not necessarily like, and the whole time this Peregrine has this like watch and she's like, perfect, this is perfect. You're 5 seconds off or like whatever. And I'm like,
It's like she
calm
was
down.
too, it was like too micromanaged because,
Yes.
and I guess the concept in the book, we don't really find out the specifics of this. And to me, the watch feels like it's part of the control of the whole loop.
Hmm.
And I guess we don't really learn about the specifics of how the loop really works and the functions of, we really don't get any of that in the book. And so I don't know if this is a way of trying to answer that question, but I did feel like it stressed me out a little bit having every part of the day
Hmm.
just on a schedule, and she's got this watch where she's just like
Yeah.
making sure it happens.
And the
um
chores
yeah,
seem so, besides like the vegetable chores, they seem so menial. Like Emma's chore is that she goes and she stands under this tree and she takes off her shoes so that she can float. And then I mean, it's good. She catches a baby squirrel so it doesn't die. Like that is, and puts it back. That's, you know,
sure, lovely, it's,
lovely.
yeah.
Yay, you saved a baby squirrel. But like that's her chore that she has to do every day. And she has Jake hold the string tied to her so she doesn't fly away. And she mentions that this used to be Abe's job. And I'm like, that's creepy. And then also in my head, I'm like, she's wearing a dress. Do you think Jacob is looking up her skirt?
Well, we know that he's a horny teenage boy.
Yeah. Even if he didn't mean to, if he's just looking so at this girl who's floating, which is weird for his universe, he's gonna see up her skirt.
It's still, I mean, maybe she's got bloomers underneath. I
True.
don't know.
I do be forgetting about bloomers.
Yeah.
But it like this little moment of her going up and saving the squirrel and him holding onto the string is like so manic pixie dream girl.
I know. I think that's honestly why they changed the power, because, and I guess it's something I don't like about that, because in the book she is fiery, like she
Hmm.
has a temper, she's bold, and in the movie it just feels like I mean, it's very manic pixie dream girl, it's very, I don't know, like picks the flowers and makes you a flower crown, and
Hmm.
I like it just, I feel like she's a weaker character,
Yeah.
and that's not who she is in the book. And I think the
Hmm.
whole floating thing is it, I mean, it's literally they're trying to make her ethereal, and she floats,
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't like that, I felt it was unnecessary. And then Olive's character, they just kind of use her for her function of fire, and we don't
Hmm.
really get much from her.
She makes fire and she's in love with Enoch.
Yeah, which Enoch's weird, and
Enoch's weird, and he's not weird in the like evil genius way like he is in the book. He's weird. What freaks me out about Enoch is he seemed too normal to like just angsty teenagers. And I'm like, yes, angsty teenagers and people in general can become villainous. And Enoch is on the edge of villainous. Like he's turning these toys into like fighting, like forcing them to fight. Like he's creepy, and also he's like so threatened by Jake because apparently he was always jealous of so okay, so he was always jealous of Abe for Abe and Emma's romance. So that was back in 1940s on their like infinite days. And it's been, you know, what, 50s to 70 years. Um, and he is still has this like emotional jealousy towards Abe, which is portrayed onto Jake. And so this whole time he's been like wanting at least Emma's attention, if nothing else. And then also that means he's been pushing Olive to the side for that many years. And so if that's true in this movie universe, all these kids are stuck at the emotional maturity that they are. And that seems like prison and illegal.
I think we talked about this too with the book though, of like,
Hmm.
do they not emotionally mature? Is it because their brains are stuck at whatever age and they can't get out of that?
Hmm.
And so I guess in some ways that's portrayed well in that sense in
Yeah.
the movie. I don't know, like I'm not sure again what I was expecting out of Enoch's character. He just feels like those teenage boys that are like borderline, like they probably hurt animals
Yeah.
for fun.
Hmm.
He's giving those vibes. And I kind of thought that we were going to get more of that like mad scientist where
Hmm.
he's ultimately doing things for the right reasons. He's just a little,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. Yeah,
It's
I
just
don't,
it's weird.
I don't know if I like how all, yeah, I don't know if I
Hmm.
like how they handled all the kids' characters and
Yeah.
just all of that in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I I agree. Jake stays for dinner. I think it's hilarious that they have like carrot steaks for dinner, but Miss Peregrine eats meat.
Oh yeah. I guess
Yeah,
I was more focused on Claire eating the
with the back of her head.
I think it's like I love the curls. I think it's so
Yes.
cute. And she's just like, okay, I'll show him,
Yeah.
and just and then we get to see that. It's like, oh, that's terrifying. And
Hmm.
how cute is she?
Yeah. I love that. And that I think was like the very like of all the kids, that's the most Tim Burton-y of them all.
For sure.
Yeah. Um, then a thing they added here is that Miss Peregrine gets a phone call from Abe in the
Yes.
middle of dinner, and we find out like another little mini lore dump is that not Abe didn't just leave to fight the Nazis, but he also left to go to other time loops and to visit them and make sure they were safe and help fight these other monsters, which we do like we find out later that's kind of what he was doing eventually, but it's like very definitive here, and I do like that we get that information earlier.
Make more sense. And we talked about this where Uncle Augie says there are no survivors, and so we know that's a change, that it wasn't like the bombing happened and then he left. I think what led to this in the movie was that Victor died.
Hmm.
So I think Victor died. We're assuming the whites killed
Hmm.
Victor, or
The
or
monsters.
the monsters, because they right. I forgot about the whole eye thing. Uh, yeah. So that's Abe is that's his catalyst for leaving, and he goes out and he's going to make sure that everyone's
Hmm.
safe. He's going to fight the monsters, and so we do get that little clip that he's already out there. He's doing it, and I guess I do like how they did that. It
Hmm. Jacob witnesses the time loop resetting with the bomb like going straight down to the house. And so they're all like quirkily right outside the house, listening to their phonograph of the song Run Rabbit, which is like a creepy song and is used in so many
so
scary movies.
creepy.
Like, great choice.
Yes, it made the whole thing even
Hmm.
eerier than it already was, which is pretty eerie just to like
Yeah.
be standing watching a bomb drop.
Yeah, so the bomb comes down, it like starts to explode, but then it like reverses back and everything gets reversed. And my question is how does everything else get reversed except like including the squirrels that are on this property, right? Because the squirrel falls every day. How does everything get reversed except for the kids standing in that circle or that area. Like there's not like like it would be different if they like had a denotated circle on the grass. Then I'd be like, no questions. But there's nothing. They just stand there.
I also thought, and so maybe this is another part where I just didn't understand like the pocket watch. How, so if the pocket watch controls it,
Uh-huh.
and like I'm just trying to understand how they caught the bomb dropping, or I guess it did drop, but they weren't in it, and she was able to reverse it after the fact to that time.
I assume that because they like could hear the planes coming, I am assuming that she heard it and was able to stop it and that like saved them and
Well,
I don't know.
I think in the book that the bomb does drop and it destroys the house,
Yeah.
and then she makes the time loop
Yeah.
where, and then it resets to that time. So I'm guessing that's how that worked, is like she just used her watch to do it in this one. I don't know, for some reason that made me it
It
made
made
it
it
a
more
little
confusing.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like it is weird and it's tough. Like it doesn't make like there's some things that they're like this fixes these answers and I'm like, well, now I have five other questions.
Yeah. And again, there's some plot holes, or maybe not plot holes, but just some unanswered things in the book.
Hmm.
I guess maybe they get answered in later books. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't know.
we don't know. We didn't read it. We're probably not going to. So.
No. Um, Jake steals a letter from the house from his grandpa, and then goes back towards the town. And as he's going through the cave, a bird flies through, and we find out that that's later we find out that's another Imbrin. Um, but Jake still goes back to the town where he like runs into his on the country road, he runs into his dad who's freaking out. I'm like, okay, good. Your dad's freaking out because you've been missing. Good. And then we have the dead sheep here.
So then they end up leaving a message for Dr.
Oh
Golan.
yeah. His dad leaves like this super like angry message. He's like, well, first he's like, you should talk to your therapist. And then Jacob's like, okay. And then his dad's like drunkenly like leaves this like super angry message. And it's like, this is weird.
Yeah, and it's, I guess the thing that I missed there was that in the book, and I guess I don't remember which time this is, maybe it's for this, but Jake calls the therapist, and Dr. Golan, we hear stuff from an airport, sounds from an airport in the
Hmm.
background of the call, and we get that kind of, and so there's a little bit of that missing. I
Hmm.
almost would have liked that better because we really didn't get any of the foreshadowing with Dr. Golan.
Yeah. Jake reads the letter that he took, and it's from Abe warning Miss Peregrine about the like evil group. I forget what they call them in the movie. In the book, they're the whites, but they renamed it, which I think is good because unless you're reading the very Welsh name,
Yes. I was gonna say making it be like the whites. It, to be fair, well, okay. So if they're Nazis, which we don't get as much Nazi tie-in, it would work.
it would work.
But
But
no, it does not work if you aren't like watching with subtitles. And yeah, I forget what they're called in the movie. So no, that's fair. That's a fair
yeah.
thing. I will note at this point I have a note here. I was watching this with Eric, and he goes, "We're an hour in. What is happening? Why isn't the plot moving?"
That's the
I said,
question.
"I don't know. I It's kind of like the book, but also I don't know."
Instead of an apple like in the book, he takes a flower and the
Yes,
flower ends up dying, which is a cool visual. Again, very Tim Burton-y.
I like that it just disintegrates.
Hmm.
Yes, I thought that was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Jake goes to the beach with his dad, and there's another birder there, and his dad spirals like he does in the book. But does it make sense why he spirals in the movie? No, because he doesn't care about birds.
you've set this up so that he's just like lazy and boring and has no drive in life, and then all of a sudden he cares that another birder swooped in
Yeah.
to to his site. So yeah, I was frustrated by that. I'm like, oh, now he's passionate about birds. Which is it,
Hmm.
mister?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jake sneaks out to go back to the house. Miss Peregrine's healing the bird that flew in. And Jake's like demanding more information, but she like says, I won't talk about unpleasant things. And I'm like, this version of Miss Peregrine is so nonsensical in the way that she is like just
Strict.
dropping lore. She's super strict, doesn't really care about these like random things that we would deem weird or unpleasant, but yet this specific unpleasant thing.
Like she's strict about some things, and she's giving him all this information, but suddenly she doesn't want to give him information, which is more, I guess, how she is in the book, where she omits a lot of things that were like, bro, he needs
Hmm.
this information. You're causing more problems by not just telling him. But yeah, I that was frustrating in the movie. I agree that like what's the point of making her like that, very strict and very, has these principles, and then I don't know. It's
Yeah, it
it's
doesn't make
dumb.
sense. But Enoch lets or helps Jake meet, quote, meet Victor. Victor, his eyes are Victor is dead like he is in the book. And his eyes are missing, but I don't just do they bring him all the way back to life in the movie? I can't remember now. I don't think they do.
No, I don't, not the way that they did in the book at least.
Yeah.
So
Um, but Miss Peregrine comes and like chase them off, and then Miss Peregrine like hugs Victor. And it grossed me out and in my head it grossed me out because I was like, ew, dead body. But then I'm like, okay, this dead body is not obviously decomposed at all. Like it's like a couple days old, dead. But also, I'm like emotionally, what the fuck?
I know, I didn't like it.
It's
I
not good. It seems like abuse to this dead person.
Yeah, I actually think that is, I think it's a crime. I don't know. I it's definitely, it's some kind of crime. I don't think you're supposed to keep dead bodies in your house, but I
Yeah.
guess this is the 1940s in a wartime. Maybe things are different. What, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's weird. It's just the whole Victor thing is weird. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The kids have an enforced time that they have to go on a walk, and Jake joins them. And so they're on the cliff sides of this island. And of course, Jake has like all these questions and he's talking to Emma in the back. Oh yeah, we forgot. Earlier in the dinner scene when they're watching the movie from what's his name? Who can
Yeah, project the dreams. So
yeah.
the first time he visited.
Yeah. Part of the dreams included monster stuff, but also included Jake and Emma almost kissing. And I'm like, great, cool.
Like we're keeping
Anyways,
that plot point.
yes. As they're walking, Emma is like, I can take you somewhere, like a secret place that's quieter. I can tell you these things. And so they get in a skiff, and I'm like, I don't know much about boat history, but did they have motorized skiffs in the 1940s?
Well, I'm not, I mean, I don't know what the extent of outboards were. I
Yeah.
mean, we had some, yeah, there might have been like little outboards. They wouldn't have been very. I All right, hold on. Let's look. First outboard motor made. Oh, 1907, according to
Okay.
Google. Yeah, so there was outboards. Yeah, I mean
Okay.
they were not like they are now, of course.
Yeah.
But one thing I was gonna note is like that is a really nice boat.
It was a nice boat.
That is a really nice boat, and she's just got this boat out here. Just
Hmm.
I was in my mind, it's just like a little, like some of the
Like a
skiffs we have
rowboat.
around here, or like a little
Yeah.
rowboat that's like, beat up old one she found abandoned on a beach. That was like
Barnacles.
yeah, barnacles. It's like slimy. That was a nice boat.
Yes, it
Just,
was.
it's like for a child. Like,
Yeah. And so they go out to the shipwreck and she starts swimming into it and then he follows or no, she sinks because she has lead boots. And so he freaks out and he's like, I need to go rescue her. And so he dives in and then she blows a bubble that goes around his head and it doesn't pop.
so yeah.
And that's when I
I'm
was
like, all
like,
right.
uh-oh. I'm like, okay, Tim Burton's, I'm trusting
Okay.
ya.
It I'm gonna say again, this is more Tim Burton taking the creative liberties because in some ways, yeah, it makes it more magical. We don't have because in the book they have like a hose that
Yes.
they're it's like surface applied air and it stresses me out the
Yes.
whole time. Like these children are in a shipwreck. They're basically cave diving with this umbilical of sketchy nature. So the bubbles and the magic is
It's less stressful.
it's less stressful. I like
Yeah.
it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's sure, why not?
Yeah. So they go into like almost like a ballroom of this ship and she closes the door and then Emma starts to blow the water out of the room.
Yeah.
Which, like, if here's the thing, we know she floats and she talks briefly, my power, like I can control air. I'm like, why don't they show her blowing something in the yard for a task, right? They need to show her doing something with,
Yeah.
yes. And then I'd be like, okay, this makes more sense. But also, if you think about it, she has shut the door to keep the water to create a barrier. Where is the water she's displacing going?
Right, because that would suggest that because the shipwreck where there's probably some kind of void or open
Uh-huh.
space, so she's blowing the water out, and so it escapes through the holes. But then her ability is that she's also creating airtight compartments or an
Mm-hmm.
airtight compartment. So I guess it she can seal it with
Yeah, she can seal it, but
the
she controls
pressure.
the air, and we see her only controlling the air with like breathing.
Yeah,
So she would be having to breathing out the whole time.
right. Because that's it suggests that she is the
Yeah.
pressure source that's pushing the water away.
Hmm.
The physics of this isn't physicsing.
It doesn't even make sense in like a superhero weird world, right? Like when you create
Well,
rules in
yeah,
your own world, you have to follow those rules. They don't follow their rules.
it doesn't make sense because it's like what's keeping the water from coming back in if she's not
Hmm.
actively blowing the water out.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. The magical powers don't make sense. What?
They don't make sense. And including the magical powers that don't make sense, she is like, okay, I said I wouldn't say anything, but here's this box I kept secret for and safe for Abe. And so she pulls out this box that's in this room, and it's not an airtight box, but the paper is dry inside of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And yeah. So like air is her peculiar power. So we don't know how that works. Maybe there's a way that she could like I don't know, make it airtight. It doesn't make sense. Um yeah. And then also something in the box that I don't know. I guess it works, but Abe had the map of all the loops. So like he had
Hmm.
this. So did he steal that from Miss Peregrine? Because like they find this later in the book,
Hmm.
but
Well,
I
in
don't
the
know why is it a secret.
flashbacks, well, not the flashbacks, when Jake and his dad are going through the house, we see the map on the back of his living room. So like the map's featured in the flashbacks and stuff. And it's just like a old map that has drawings and notes and writing on it. And so yeah, so and then when we find out, he was traveling around to help protect different loops, it just like kind of connects those things. But yeah, so we get another lore dump here, right? We get all the information about the bad peculiars who essentially went evil and they wanted to control or become immortal. Um, and their leader, Baron, uh, tried this experiment with some of the peculiars, but it went bad and turned some of the peculiars into these monsters, into the hollows. And the hollows also feed off peculiars by eating their eyes. And by eating enough eyes, they turned back into people.
I really didn't like the eyes.
I
I
didn't either. But
the
as far
pile of
as
eyes was gross.
the pile of eyes was disgusting. But again, it's a very Tim Burton thing.
It is very Tim Burton. It's yeah.
Yeah. I didn't love that part. But also in like the world of special effects, eyes and making someone's eyes look empty, eye sockets look empty is part of on the easier side of the scale, right? It's more easy to replicate. So I understand like of the change they're going to make of making that change. And the
Book
monsters in
they
general, I don't mind.
the Slender Man.
Yeah, I don't mind the Slenderman and they still have like weird tentacle stuff. Like they're still creepy
Yeah.
and scary, but they're not like overpoweringly scary.
Okay, so in the book they drink the blood of the peculiars, is that
I don't
or
remember. I think
how
they just
we
eat
don't
it.
they just eat them? Yeah, so I guess it is easier for that to be the eyes. And then it's because otherwise they'd be vampires, and then it's just like, are you another Twilight?
Yeah.
Or like I don't imagine that like the visual of eating children would be particularly pleasant. So I guess eyes are good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of
Yeah.
wanted it to be more of like Dementor take the soul or something, or the essence of the peculiar.
Yeah.
It would have been a little, I don't know, I just that was gross.
It was definitely gross. But yeah, so we get all that backstory, and then Emma and Jake go back to the house where we find out that the bird has turned back into her human form, and it's none other than Dame Judi Dench.
Such a good cast.
Yeah, great cast. Too bad the rest of it wasn't great.
Yeah, it's really a strong cast, and I just feel like it should have been better.
Yes. But we find out that the Baron and his evil group are doing more experiments and they are trying to recreate the situation and her group of peculiars has been attacked and taken. Um
The machine set up in their loop,
yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, in her loop, yes. And so Jacob goes back to the village so he can like I guess tell his dad he's gonna help them or something like that. Like to be a good boy, I guess. He goes back to the village. I don't really remember why he goes back to the village.
I don't remember what it is that
It's it so that he can like make sure there's nothing weird going on, maybe.
it's because they're talking about how the other birder showed up because they're maybe saying how like, oh, did is anyone new shown up? And he's like, oh my gosh, the other birder, my dad's in danger. Maybe that's and which I think is also true in
Yes,
the yeah, in
in
the
the book,
book.
yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
he goes back to his time
And this is where Augie is found dead on the side of the
and
cliff.
missing his eyes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And Jacob, his dad's like, "You're not going anywhere, Jacob." And his dad's like, "No, I gotta go." And the ornithologist like that they meet is there and starts following Jake, and Jake doesn't realize that he's being followed, which I was like, 101.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
101 to having a secret passage is no one follows.
Yeah, just like make sure, just give a little quick glance and make sure you're
Hmm.
not like you already are concerned about this. Yeah, that was kind of
Yeah.
silly.
And in the cave, Jake is when Jake realizes he's been followed by the ornithologist. Oh, also, we forgot. After them in the room in the boat part, we see Miss Peculiar standing in a field and counting down until a monster comes up to shore. So it's the monster that had killed Victor. Um,
Peregrine shoots with the crossbow.
And yeah, she shoots him with the
Okay.
crossbow. And she times it perfectly, and she has like the chalk outline of his body where he falls, which I think is a fun touch.
Because
Because
she can't see.
because
Right.
only Jake and Abe can see the monsters. Like that's their peculiar
Yes.
power, right? And so
Yeah.
I thought that
I
was
like
really
that.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Right. In the cave. So we get Dr. Golan.
yes. He turns into the therapist, turns into I
Finally,
think
Baron.
yeah, he ends with Mr. Barron, aka Samuel L. Jackson.
Right. So yeah, we don't get the same like the bus driver and the gardener and the all these other yeah,
Yeah.
but
Which is
whatever.
okay because we didn't really see them in the movie.
Yeah, it's honestly it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Like
the
we
the,
get
the
the
point is
point.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But Mr. Barron takes Jacob to the house under capture and uh this this bit where he like knocks on the door and then Miss Peregrine and then Baron tries to tell the kids to all come down and Miss Peregrine's like, no one tells my kids what to do in my house. And then she turns around and says, kids come down.
I know. I was like, what was the point of that? Like
Yeah.
that was yeah.
Yeah, so Miss Peregrine essentially sacrifices herself for the safety of her kids. She says, I will go with you if you let Jake go and you leave my kids alone in this house. And Baron's like, yeah, that's fine. I just want you. And so the kids go in this living room, which um Judi Dench is also in, but hiding, which I thought was fun.
It's like she's behind the door and just
Mhm.
like, don't worry about me. Like I'm not here.
Yeah.
Just
I think it's fun and it's like a little tongue in cheek and but it's like, oh, she's gonna be important. It's like what they're trying to set up. Unfortunately, as soon as Baron leaves and with Miss Peregrine, the monsters are headed towards the house, and Dame Judi Dench is like helping the kids like prepare like weapons and stuff and dies right away. And I'm like, how much screen time did she get? Probably 3 minutes max.
I just I know she ends up getting kidnapped in the book by
Hmm.
the Nazis, but I don't know. I just that wasn't cool. Like why couldn't you
Yeah.
just make her get tossed out and injured where she can't help? Like why'd you have to kill her?
Yeah.
We already get the phone call.
Oh no, I forgot about the phone call.
Yeah, the phone call. So this is like during this time or whatever that the phone rings, and I think Emma is like, "Hey, Jake, you should answer it."
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so when Jake answers it, it's his grandpa, like a few years after he probably left the house, warning or like asking Miss Peregrine about how things are going.
Yeah,
And
it's his daily call. I mean, well, in the loop
yeah,
it happens every day. Yeah.
and it's really like Jake like has this like moment of like, I'm sorry, I missed you, you were awesome. And it's like it was a super sweet moment.
I know. I thought that was like, oh, he gets to talk to his grandpa when they're the same age, basically. And like,
Yeah.
and the grandpa doesn't really know, he's like, oh, new kid,
Mhm.
okay. But it's that was really cool. I thought that
Yeah.
was it's not in the book, but I thought that was a really neat way to connect the two.
Yeah, and it adds, especially since there was so little time creating Jake and Abe's relationship in the beginning, that I think it's a good touch. It really does show how close they were, um, which is important just considering the time limit they had in this movie, you know.
Cool thing. And, I don't know if it's the best placement for everything. It's like this timing of the movie, it's like all very chaotic. Um, but I don't know. I thought that was a cool thing that yeah,
Hmm.
that they included.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jake ends up leading the group throughout the house to the attic to try and escape the monsters. So they're in the attic. The bomb is about to come hit the house, and so they're like, "Okay, let's use this to our advantage." And so they lead the monster up to the attic while they all escape right in time for the bomb hitting the house. So that one monster is killed in the bomb, right?
So Enoch gets taken by the monster or something, and then
And
Jake's like
Jake
supposed to
saves
shoot it,
him.
but it
Yeah.
takes him forever.
And
He's
he's like
like,
super bad at aiming.
oh. It's like, oh my god, that was painful. was like, come on, you can do it. Just like, let's do it. Get it
Yeah.
over with. Yeah. So that was before they get out of the attic, I think. That it's like he finally pulls the trigger,
Hmm.
bro.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I will say the bomb thing, once I realized they're headed to the attic, I was like, oh, this is I see where this is going. Like it was
Yeah.
a little predictable in that sense, I guess. Like,
Hmm.
it's like, oh, of course they're gonna use the bomb to kill it. Like, what
Yeah.
else would they do? Yeah. But it works.
And then as they're escaping, they're like, okay, we need to go and save Miss Peregrine. We know they're getting she's taken to Judy Dench's loop. Um, and so they're like, okay, we need to go to that loop. How do we get there? And it's like, oh, we can get there on this side of the loop and then go through it to get to the correct timeline. And they're like, okay, how do we get to this part of England? Because the loop happens to be in a different part of the UK, thankfully. And so they're like, oh, we can take a boat. And Emma unsinks the warship.
So also their loop closes, right? Because the bomb
Yes.
drops.
Yes.
So their loop closes. So they also don't have an option. Like they kind of have to do something. Like
Yes.
they have no home. The loop's done. Like they're stranded.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, she raises a ship from shore.
It's like, okay, guys, cool. And so they're on the ship headed to the UK, and this is where we have the scene where Emma and Jake almost kiss, right? Because they get
Yes.
interrupted by the
Yeah.
other kids.
They almost kiss. But also I just kind of had this thought. I was like, oh, like the loop closes, he's stuck.
Hmm.
Which was like in the book, he goes back to say goodbye,
Yeah.
even though he doesn't really have a very fulfilling goodbye with his dad, because his dad's like, I must be dreaming, whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess in this one, the way that it's set up, it's like it just closes. He doesn't get a choice.
It closes, but like also it's less like of a you're stuck, I think, because of the other loops and because this other loop is connected to 2016.
Right. And that's kind of it almost gives them that
Yeah, it's like you can like
like
loop
there's his
jump.
decision
Yeah.
instead of yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
but
we
yes,
have
they almost kiss
they almost
and
kiss, which is still weird. Yeah.
yeah.
But they get to the town in England and it's this like little pier with this like a kind of a fun house at the edge of it, but there's nothing else on the pier. And this is the 1940s and I don't know if there would be that thing at the edge of the pier. There'd be some sort of, boardwalk-esque thing there, but they use that as the time loop spot. And here is where I'm like, okay, so they do a lot of changes at the end here, which I don't hate a lot of the changes. I think there are some fun ideas. But the thing is that 1940s in England, there'd be way more like World War II stuff in the background, right? It's not like there'd be like other warships. There would be soldiers. There'd be
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really know, that this is based off of something. Why, yeah, why is there just like this carnival happening? I don't know. It seems like it would be a target,
mm-hmm.
like for bombing. And at this time, we know obviously they're bombing all,
Yeah.
the house. So like it seems like this whole carnival setup would be a target. I don't, I don't know. Maybe they had stuff going, yeah,
It
during
just
the
it
war, but
doesn't yeah, it doesn't make sense. And like besides they like showed like the Nazi insignia on the plane and the bomb. And besides that and the mentioning of the bombing itself, there's no other mentions of World War II or the fact that these kids are being hunted, which is why they have houses in general. There's no like the again like the whole like part about Abe's family being killed in Poland because they're Jewish. Like that is all what's taken
left
out.
everything out.
And I feel like that is really important to like the foundation of Miss Peregrine's home. It's not just the peculiarity of these kids, but also the other ostracizing factors of these kids besides their peculiarity. And it just makes the movie feel empty.
There's no context for it,
Hmm.
and I think that's I think it's kind of weird they left it out. I maybe it's because they didn't want it to be a World War II movie. you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe they were trying to avoid that trap of it becoming that, whereas they're trying to focus on magical children. But it does, like some of the depth of it just is
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah. But anyways, they get to the weird little fair thing. They go through the time loop, and it's first just Emma, Milton, and Jake who go through to check out the situation. And then it's weird to see them in 2016, but also I think that's like a fun idea of them coming back and forth. And then we essentially get what is a hollow workplace drama scene where Baron's sitting there and he's like, "This is what we're gonna do," and the guys sitting down, like the rest of the group, are like, "What about the others? What about the other monsters who used to be our friends before they turned into hollows? Like, what about them?" And they like don't want to follow his leadership, and he's like, "Whatever." Like Samuel L. Jackson, obviously, he's an amazing actor, not a surprise, but in this, like he every time he's on screen, I'm into it. I'm like, yes.
Yes, he does a good job with that role, and
Hmm.
yeah, I do. I think it is kind of funny. They're like, I don't know, man. Like this
Yeah.
is,
It's like, can we vote on this? Like Robert's
yeah,
Rules of Order or whatever.
yes,
Then the kids decide to like figure out their plan. They have Enoch bring the skeletons in the boat to life to go and start uh help kill the hollows that are coming to attack. And I thought that was such a fun idea. Like they're
yes,
using the stuff in the boat.
yeah. I'm very resourceful.
And the snowballs, I think, was funny so that they could see the hollows. I thought that was a cool
Yes,
idea.
that was clever.
Hmm. And then they're able to like start killing the hollows, but then back with like the non-monster bad guys. The lady that has her peculiar power is that she is a monkey.
Yeah, I. So is any of this like is this future book stuff that they brought in, or they just like made up this ending?
I have a feeling that they just made it all up.
I don't know. There's just a lot of this that I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. It's suddenly like really entertaining, which doesn't match the rest of the movie. It doesn't make sense. It's just like, whoa, what?
All
Okay.
of the action happens at the end of the movie,
Uh-huh.
and it took so long to get there.
Yes.
You learn about
Dude,
the twins
yes. The twins take
finally.
off their masks. Yes. And they turn the monkey lady into stone. It's like,
Why
what?
not? Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Olive, who's the one at the fire, it gets pushed into water and then is frozen by one of the adult evil peculiars. Um, but then she is able to escape and Enoch kisses her. As this is going on, Jake follows Baron to like the science room, right?
Experiment, yeah. The
Yeah,
machine.
all the machines. And he rescues Miss Peregrine by letting all the birds out while Emma's like trying to blow wind at Baron up against the wall. And it's like a very dramatic scene. And like, again, because Samuel L. Jackson knows how to act, I was like, this is entertaining and I'm into it because someone is doing good with the stuff that they were given. I don't know. Um, Samuel L. Jackson turns into a version of Jake,
Yes.
which is fun. And because everyone else has been killed, but there's one hollow, or there's a couple hollows left still, or one hollow left. And so to try and convince the kids that he's Jake, you know, Baron's doing the whole, which is, a trope that's in movies, but it's still fun. And he's like, I'm the real Jake. But then the real Jake sees the hollow, and the hollow kills fake Jake, which is
Fake
Baron,
Jake.
which is so
Yeah.
fun.
I thought that was actually a cool way. I mean, all of this is so off of like we're not even on the book anymore,
Yeah.
or at least this book. But that was, yeah. I thought that was a very clever way to wrap that part of
Yes.
the story up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jake kills that hollow. Miss Peregrine is still stuck as a bird at this point. But then, like, we don't see Jake go back through the time loop. He's just suddenly back in Florida.
So we just basically they say their goodbyes, like he doesn't go with them, and
Hmm.
then the portal closes, and we're just somehow,
Yeah. Yeah.
somehow everything's like we don't even know really where he's at, where this
Hmm.
carnival is that exists both in the 40s and in 2016, a
Yeah.
very enduring business.
Yes.
um, yeah, and but so we're back in Florida,
And
but we're
Abe's
back.
alive.
Yes, we've so somehow this carnival existed in his year, but before his grandfather died.
Yep.
Sure.
I don't and like the only reason why they have that is so that his grandpa Abe can say to him, "Go to her," which is creepy. Go to my ex-girlfriend and kiss her, grandson. What?
Yeah, so he gives him like all the stuff. He's like, go, here you go. Like, I know what's going to happen, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I will say that like I still think the whole him and Emma thing is creepy, but it's less creepy than the book, I think, because in the book it's so clear like Emma is still in love with Abe and has
Yes.
all these like big emotions, and his death is very upsetting, and then in like the movie, and I'm sure it was intentional, that they made her a little more, she cared for Abe, but we
Hmm.
don't get the sense that they were like that romantic, really. I mean,
Yeah.
there's suggested things, but there's not the like strong emotional, you
Yeah.
know. And also we don't get the part in where in the book they have that letter from Emma that his dad and the sister find, and that's they think
Yeah,
she's the
yeah.
other woman. That
Yeah.
it works better in the
There's
movie.
less baggage.
It's still weird. I still didn't
Yes.
like it.
It's still weird, though I will say I did like him suddenly running with long hair. That really made me laugh. Um, and he runs to the boat that they're on still apparently, and he explains that he looped jumped all the way back to 1940, and then he joined the
Journey.
yeah, and then he joined the Navy, and then he found her, and I'm like, this is a cool idea for a story. Why is it just the last lines?
Oh, I wanted more of that.
Yes.
If you're gonna just make up stuff
Hmm.
for the book, again, we don't know if this is in a future book. So if people
Yeah.
have read the future books and we're like, what is this? And they're just yelling at us to read the book, we're not going to. And so
No.
just don't
Yep.
mind us here.
We're
But
purposely being ignorant about the later books.
we are choosing ignorance on this. But yeah, I would have loved to see. I love that in movies, and there it happens a lot when they go back through time and stuff. It's fun. I like it.
Hmm.
It's why didn't we do more of that?
Yeah. And it's like time travel stories always have plot holes and issues, and I'm usually okay at accepting them. This movie had so many time travel plot holes for how little time travel there is.
Agreed.
Yes, like if there was cooler time travel stuff going on, like in the last 20 seconds, I'd be on board and be like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it's fun. I can't say that about this. It's not fun.
They kiss.
And that's
Gross.
it.
And then Miss Peregrine does turn back into a woman,
Oh, yes. And watches
which
them
is
kiss.
different because yeah, because otherwise, like in the first book, it ends with her not being able to turn
Hmm.
back because she's too injured or
Hmm.
whatever. So this one, we do get a little bit more resolution, and then they sail off into the sunset.
Yeah. Cool. Doing what?
We don't know, what are we doing now? There's
What
no
if we find
plan.
like that's such a like it's such a weird ending, especially for Jake and Emma as like a like okay, what if you guys don't actually get along as a couple?
Really committed. You're like, he's 16.
Uh-huh. Well, he's probably older by now because he enlisted in the army in the 40s.
I mean, we don't. I guess we don't know how much time he spent in all the loops.
Yeah, and his hair has been long.
Okay, so maybe he's 17 or 8. He
Yeah.
can't be too old. She's young.
Well, but if she's also going through time now.
Oh, that's right. She's aging too. That's right. She's not stuck anymore. But
Yeah.
still, like they're teenagers.
Yeah. It
And
seems reckless in not a fun way.
I don't know.
Yeah. Do you want to hear some fun facts? So the house that they used for the set of Peregrine's house is a old home called Note not a Boom. I will write it in the description because I cannot pronounce it, but it is outside Antwerp, Belgium, and is a popular photographer urban exploration site. The monsters designed were inspired by the art of a Polish painter. I'll put his name in the description because I'm gonna butcher this. I'm sorry to my Polish friends and fans. Um, Zdzisław Bekinski, but I will put his name and a link to the pictures if I can find them in the description. In the yard of Miss Peregrine's house, there is a dinosaur-shaped shrub, which is an Easter egg for Tim Burton's other movie, Edward Scissorhands, which is I thought that was fun.
That's clever. I like it.
The village was filmed in two different villages in England. First one being East Port Holland, and the other one being Blackpool. If you want to go visit, uh, Timothy Chalamet auditioned for Jake and did not get the role. The person who ended up playing Jake, Asa Butterfield, or Butterfield. Asa Butterfield, I think is his name. I wrote it wrong. Anyways, he is one of the leads in the Netflix TV show Sex Ed, which is a great TV show if you like British teen drama comedies. I recommend it. And then also on the DVD, there is an anti-smoking PSA in the specials or extras. I watched it because it just said something something PSA, and I was like, "What is this?" Yeah,
I mean, great message, random placement.
right? Yeah. But yeah, this movie was weird in not a fun way.
So, like, my positive, I'm glad they included all the kids. Say that again.
Yes.
I'm glad that I still think it was wrong for them to switch Olive and Emma. I didn't like it.
Hmm.
It kind of diminished Emma's character a little. There's a lot of information that is missing. I mean, I know that's how this goes when you take a book and turn it into a movie. That's always the complaint, is like, they're missing the key thing. Yes, always a thing. I just think watching it with someone that has never read the book, there was a lot of just like, wait, what is happening? What is this? Why? You know, there was a lot of questions. So I do think that it's just missing something. It's missing the context with like World War II and everything. In some ways, it's not as bad as I expected, because I had heard from people that had read the book and watched it and they're really disappointed. So I went in with low expectations. So in some ways, it wasn't as bad as I expected. I don't know that it's a good adaptation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're trying to put so much into it from the book, but then they also tried to add so much with their changes. And I didn't mind a lot of the changes. Like I thought the whole ending sequence, I thought it was a really fun idea, and I kind of wish that's how the book ended instead of their weird like boat battle about yelling across the water. Like,
in some ways, I wish they would have been inspired by the book and maybe almost not followed the book as much. Like, I wish they would have kind of taken the concept of it and then turned it into something that makes for a better movie.
yeah.
But I guess that's not how that works when you're adapting a book.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think the acting throughout it, like the main actors are good. I
Solid
think
cast.
yeah, solid cast. I think as far as the look of characters, great. I love the costuming. The set design was great. I did think it was not spooky enough.
So, and maybe this is a personal preference. Like, my flavor of horror that I like, of scary stuff, is I kind of like when they give you less, the suspense, the unknown. I don't like gory. That's the thing, why the eyeballs, it's just like
Hmm.
unnecessary. It was gross. I
Hmm.
didn't like it. But I like the suspense kind of things. And I didn't feel like we got enough of that type of creepy. We
Yeah, I
got
feel like
like
they're
a
trying to
little
be
gory.
quirky.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it could have been more peculiar.
Yeah, the atmosphere and like that's like the one thing about the book I really enjoyed was the atmosphere of the like spooky, odd things. Like that was a good part of the writing. I didn't love the writing in the book, but that part I liked. And I don't think the spookiness or that atmosphere transferred well into the movie, which is so surprising since Tim Burton directed this.
Yeah, you would think that that would not be an issue, but it almost it's like could you bring in a little more of what you're known for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also agree with you. I don't think it's a good adaptation. And not because it didn't follow like you know, it wasn't like a perfect point for point, scene for scene. Because I as a personally, I don't care if adaptations are like that. The changes distance themselves from the stuff they kept in the movie. So it just felt disjointed and it the atmosphere from the book didn't stick. The themes were even not even fully there about, accepting each other and accepting yourself for being different. Those themes were nowhere to be seen.
It could have been a good movie. And it's not that it was a bad movie. It just like it wasn't what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm also glad that I read the book twice before I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yes.
agree. And also justice for Bird Dad.
And justice for Bird Dad. Yeah, because we really just we didn't get the character. I don't not that the dad's even really that important to the story. I just didn't like how yeah. Too much cargo shorts, not enough birds. That's my complaint.
Or at least there could be more cargo shorts if they're involved with the birds.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks again for being on the pod, Delaney. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me and for
Of
doing the
course.
bird game,
The bird
which
game
you should go listen to or watch
on the Patreon.
on the Patreon. Yes,
Yes.
go do it. Do the
Yeah.
thing.
Do the thing. It's linked below. And make sure you also, if you like this podcast, rate us 5 stars, share it with your friends. Follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Updates for future episodes and other fun things will be on the Instagram. So check that out. And remember, read the book first.